corners of the Honey Island swamp in Louisiana, there is a terrifying legend whispered among those brave enough to venture into its depths. The legend speaks of a monstrous creature, one that lurks in the shadows, waiting to strike with terrifying speed. Known as the Honey Island Swamp Monster, it is a creature so elusive, so horrifying, that even the most seasoned swamp dwellers fear its presence. This creature, resembling a twisted version of Sasquatch, is said to stand over 7 feet tall. Its massive frame, cloaked in dark, matted fur that blends seamlessly with the swamp's dense vegetation. Its face is a grotesque mask of primal fury, with glowing eyes that pierce the night, searching for prey. Locals speak of its long, sinewy arms, ending in claws that could shred through flesh with ease, and its stench, an overpowering, rotten odor that fills the air whenever it draws near. Those who have dared to venture into the swamp speak of an oppressive silence that descends as they approach its territory, as though the very swamp holds its breath in fear of the creature. The air grows thick with unease. The water becomes still, and the usual sounds of the wild, frogs croaking, birds calling, suddenly vanish, replaced by an unsettling quiet. The Honey Island Swamp Monster is no mere animal. It is something darker, something that has learned to hide in the shadows, waiting for its prey. Some say it watches from the trees, its eyes glowing in the dark, following every movement with an unnatural focus. Others claim to have heard its blood-curdling howl echoing through the swamp, a scream so chilling it freezes the blood of those unlucky enough to hear it. No one knows for sure if the Honey Island Swamp Monster is real, or if it's just a myth, but one thing is certain. Those who enter the swamp and return with tales of the creature speak with terror in their eyes. The swamp itself seems to hide its secrets, and the monster that roams it remains an enigma, a nightmare waiting to be unleashed on anyone who dares to uncover the truth. The ghost of Kiev is a haunting legend born from the heart of war, a spectral figure that has terrified and fascinated those who have heard the tale. During the harrowing days of the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine, as Kiev was besieged and the sky filled with smoke and terror, a mysterious fighter pilot appeared. This ghostly figure, said to be a Ukrainian ace, flew a sleek, deadly aircraft across the battle-scarred skies of Kiev, striking down Russian planes with unnatural precision. Some say the ghost of Kiev was a living hero. Others claim he was a spirit, summoned by the very anguish of war. What is certain, however, is that his presence in the air was both a beacon of hope and a harbinger of doom. physics, appearing in places where no plane could be, and vanishing before a single bullet could hit him. Those who spoke of the ghost said his eyes were always just out of sight, hidden beneath the shadows of his helmet, a reflection of the dark grief that hung over Kiev. The legend whispers that the ghost still roams the skies, protecting his people, a figure born of both war and vengeance, never to be caught. In the desolate, windswept landscape of Escalante, petrified forest, something ancient and malevolent stirs beneath the earth, a curse that punishes those who dare disturb the long-dead remnants of a forgotten world. It is said that if you take even a single shard of petrified wood from the park, you will unleash a chain of misfortune so vile it will haunt you for life. The curse of Escalante is not one to be taken lightly. Those who have taken the petrified wood, some with the best of intentions, have returned home to a life shattered by calamity, job losses, sickness, car accidents. These are the least of the horrors that befall those who steal from the ancient forest. Many have reported feeling an overwhelming sense of dread the moment they lay a hand on the wood, as if something unseen but terribly powerful is watching, waiting. As the legend goes, the spirits of the forest, the souls of those who once walked the earth, guard the petrified trees with an unrelenting fury. They have cursed the land, and anyone who dares to desecrate it will suffer until the stolen wood is returned. Those who ignore the warning find themselves spiraling into a nightmare of misfortune and despair. The air is thick with tension in Escalante, and if you ever find yourself there, beware. Touch the wood, and the curse will find you slowly, surely, and with no mercy. On the dark, mist-shrouded waters of the Platte River, there drifts a ship This eerie apparition has haunted the stretch between Alcova and Torrington, Wyoming, ever since the ship, unnaturally gray and spectral, glides silently across the river's surface, its sails billowing in the windless air, as though propelled by something far more sinister than the breeze. But it's the crew that truly chills the soul. The sailors aboard the death ship are no men at all. They are phantoms, pale, hollow-eyed figures who stand motionless on deck, their faces twisted in eternal suffering. They move with an unnatural jerking motion, as though bound by some cruel force that will never allow them peace. No one has ever heard them speak, nor seen them react to the world around them. They simply drift, forever trapped on their cursed vessel. Locals speak of the ship's appearance as a death omen. Those who have witnessed it often report a sense of overwhelming dread, as if the ship is drawing them closer to the grave. Some claim that if you stare too long at the ghostly ship, it will come for you, its crew reaching out, cold hands grasping for your soul. Many who have ventured near the river never return, their fates lost to the death ship's eternal voyage. Once you see it, you may never leave the river alive. In the dark corners of Brentwood, New Hampshire, the name Goody Cole still sends shivers down the spine of those who dare speak it. Eunice Cole, a frail, weathered woman with eyes that seem to see through the veil of life and death, was condemned to be a witch twice. The first accusation came in 1656, when the village suffered one tragedy after another. Crops withered, children fell ill, and livestock died in grotesque, unnatural ways. Whispers spread like wildfire. It was her, Goody Cole, they said. She was the one responsible for the misfortune that gripped their town in 1673. The accusations resurfaced with a vengeance. Goody Cole was arrested once more, this time charged with witchcraft after the village saw another wave of disaster. Her name became a curse on every passing wind. This forsaken patch of earth is like no other, a circle of barren ground where no tree, no grass, nor even the faintest weed will grow. Locals fear it, and with good reason. It is said that the devil himself walks here, leaving behind a desolate trail where nothing will grow. Night after night, the ground remains eerily still, but the legends tell a different story. Those brave or foolish enough to camp nearby often report strange, unexplainable events, whispered voices that chill the blood, footsteps in the darkness that echo too close for comfort, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Some claim that if you try to sleep in the circle, you'll awaken to find your belongings scattered, your camp destroyed, yet no one will be in sight. A far more terrifying tale is that those who wander too close after dark vanish without a trace. The trees seem to whisper of a dark pact, a forgotten ritual that keeps the devil's footsteps forever carved into the earth. The tramping ground isn't just a place. The Fresno night crawlers are a grotesque and unsettling cryptid, a mystery that has chilled the bones of those who dare to speak of it. First captured on CCTV footage in Fresno, California, these strange creatures are unlike anything ever seen before. Tall, unnaturally thin, and hauntingly pale, they appear to have long, spindly legs that seem to stretch on forever, their movement unnatural, almost like they glide through the air. The footage, grainy and eerie, shows two of these nightmarish figures moving silently through the darkened streets, their shapes disturbing in their simplicity. They resemble nothing more than a pair of white, tattered pants, walking on their own, with no body, no face, just long, dangling legs that bend and sway with a chilling fluidity. Locals who have ventured into the area where the creatures were spotted report a pervasive, suffocating sense of dread. Some say they feel watched, as though the night crawlers are always just out of sight, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. It's time in the dark corners of the world. Whatever the truth, the Fresno night crawlers remain an enigma, a terrifying reminder that some things are best left unexplained. The Enfield poltergeist is one of the most chilling supernatural events in modern history, a story that still haunts the minds of those who hear it. In the late 1970s, between 1977 and 1979, a council house on 284 Green Street in Enfield, London, became the epicenter of unspeakable terror. Two young sisters, ages 11 and 13, found themselves at the mercy of an unseen force, a malicious spirit that seemed hell-bent on tormenting them. It started with furniture moving of its own accord, eerie knocks echoing through the walls, and objects levitating with a terrifying, unnatural force. But as the haunting escalated, it grew darker, more violent. The sisters were thrown from their beds, dragged across rooms by invisible hands, and subjected to strange, guttural voices emanating from their own mouths. Voices not their own. Witnesses, including police officers and paranormal investigators, reported witnessing furniture flying across rooms, doors slamming with a force that shook the house to its core. The air was thick with an oppressive energy, as if the very walls were alive with the spirit of something malevolent. For years, the Enfield poltergeist defied explanation, leaving those involved forever changed. Many are convinced that the house at Green Street, in the dimly lit chambers of Spanish folklore, lies a chilling legend about the Castilian lisp, a haunting echo that whispers through the language itself. According to the tale, centuries ago, there was a Spanish king whose tongue bore a strange affliction. His speech was marked by an unnatural lisp, a soft but chilling hiss that crept into every word, bending the sounds like twisted vines. This was no ordinary speech impediment. Many believed it was a curse, some ancient hex upon the royal bloodline. The legend says that the king's court, fearful of invoking his wrath, began to mimic his lisping speech, imitating the soft, eerie sounds that dripped from his lips like poison. They say the lisp spread like an infection, starting with the nobles, then seeping into the commoners' tongues, and finally swallowing the entire land. It became known as the Castilian lisp, a language haunted by a ghostly sound, forever marking Spanish speech with the king's cursed voice. But there are darker layers to the tale. Some say that those who refused to mimic the king's speech met a horrifying end, found with throats slit, their final words etched in blood. Shadows of resistance were snuffed out like candles, until all that remained was the unnatural lisp echoing through Spain. To this day, in the twisting alleys of old Spanish towns, people claim to hear it. Late at night, when the streets are silent and the air grows cold, you might catch a ghostly hiss, the faint chilling echo of a sound long forgotten but never gone. Some say it's the king himself, his spirit lingering, enforcing his cursed speech on the living. Others believe that the lisp is a specter in the language, an ancient whisper that slips from the mouth of those who speak it, bound to a promise no one remembers making. So, when you hear the peculiar sound of the Castilian lisp, listen closely, for you might just hear a voice from beyond, a phantom king, still whispering, still lingering, haunting the language of his people with every breath. In the shadowy corners of Chilean and Argentine folklore, there is a creature that terrifies even the most steadfast, the chanchon. This isn't any ordinary bird. It is a dark spirit, a twisted sorcerer transformed, taking the grotesque form of a disembodied head, with enormous, bat-like wings, formed from its own ears. The chanchon is said to haunt the night, its eerie, blood-curdling cry, tee, 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 echoing through villages and sending icy chills down the spines of those who hear it. Legend tells of powerful machi, sorcerers who could transcend the human form and, through a dark ritual, separate their heads to transform into the chanchon. As these sinister heads take flight, they prowl the darkness, seeking their victims, driven by an insatiable thirst for fear, with piercing red eyes that glow against the inky sky, and fanged teeth that glint in the moonlight. The chanchon is more than a mere creature. It is an omen of death, a harbinger of doom. Villagers claim that if you hear the chilling toot 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 cry, you must hide and remain absolutely silent, for the chanchon can sense even the faintest breath, the slightest heartbeat. Its presence drains warmth from the air, leaving a deathly chill in its wake. Some who have dared to look up at the sky during the cry swear they have seen the chanchon hovering, watching, waiting, and for the unlucky ones it chooses to descend upon. A strange, feverish sickness follows, lingering like a dark curse. Those who have encountered the chanchon and lived to tell the tale often describe nightmares that plague them for weeks afterward. Visions of a head with flapping ears, soulless red eyes, and that unending, haunting cry. To this day, the chanchon remains a whispered fear in the quiet villages along the Andes, a ghostly predator that rules the night skies, So if you ever hear that distant ghostly toot 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 cry in the dead of night, beware. The Shanshan may be circling above, its gaze set on you, eager to claim yet another soul in the darkness.
In the dark corners of Fairfax County, Virginia, lurks a tale so twisted it leaves a chill, even in the bravest hearts. The legend of the Bunny Man is whispered in hushed tones, a haunting memory of the night he first appeared, a figure in a ragged, filthy rabbit costume, eyes blazing with madness, clutching an axe. It began in 1970, on a cold October night. A young couple parked their car near an old bridge, hoping for a quiet moment alone. Suddenly, they heard a scraping sound, metal dragging against stone, then a bone-chilling voice snarling, "Get off my land." In the dim light, they saw him, the Bunny Man. He lifted his axe high, and with a swift, furious swing, shattered their windshield. Shrieking, the couple sped off, but the image of the crazed man, fur-matted with dirt and blood, etched itself into their minds. Since that night, stories have spread, each one more horrifying than the last. Some say he's the ghost of an escaped asylum patient who hides in the woods, haunting the county in search of revenge. Others claim he's a restless spirit, doomed to stalk the shadows forever, fueled by a rage he can't control. They say that if you dare to visit the bridge at midnight, you might hear the sound of his axe scraping the ground, his ghostly form lingering in the shadows, waiting for another soul to claim. People swear they've seen him, his silhouette under the moonlight, his eyes gleaming from the depths of the forest. And one thing is certain. Once you see the Bunny Man, you'll never forget the sight of his axe, the echo of his growl, or the terror that will haunt your dreams.
On the evening of September 20th, 1965, the quiet town of Felixstowe, England, became the site of a terrifying encounter with something otherworldly. It was a crisp night when residents witnessed an extraordinary phenomenon that defied explanation. Something that would forever haunt the town's history. The air grew thick, and a strange, unnatural glow lit up the sky. What they saw that night was like nothing anyone had ever seen before. demon, an immense fiery entity, descended from the dark sky. Its flames blazed with an intensity so fierce they cast a hellish red hue across the landscape, turning the streets into a fiery labyrinth. The creature moved with eerie fluidity, its form shifting and writhing as it hovered above the ground. Witnesses described it as a massive, burning figure, its eyes glowing with an infernal light, its presence suffocating and oppressive. Panic spread through the town as the demon floated above, casting a shadow over Felix Stowe that seemed to drain all warmth from the air. The heat from its flames was unbearable, yet it did not scorch the earth beneath it. And then, as suddenly as it appeared, the fire demon vanished, leaving the townspeople paralyzed with fear and confusion. To this day, no explanation has been found for the sighting. Some say it was a visit from beings beyond the stars. Others claim it was something much darker, but those who saw it never forgot the horror of that night. The night Felix Stowe was touched by the flames of something far more terrifying than fire. There are bridges across the United States, weathered and forgotten, where the air grows thick with an unsettling presence, a presence that can only be described by one name: Crybaby Bridge. On these forsaken structures, beneath the weight of darkness, a chilling sound pierces the night. The unmistakable wail of a baby. Some say it's the echo of a mother's grief. Others speak of a tragedy too terrible to comprehend. Legend has it that the cry comes from the depths of the bridge, rising from the black waters below. The baby's scream is sharp, desperate, full of the raw, painful longing of a child lost in time. Those brave enough to stop and listen speak of the hair-raising feeling that something unseen is watching, waiting. Some say if you listen too long, you'll hear more than just crying. You'll hear the soft, wet footsteps of something crawling up from the dark, its hands reaching for you, pulling you into the water, just as it did to the child long ago. And no one knows why the sound lingers. circulated through the darker corners of the internet, preying on the curious and the desperate. The tale goes like this. If you dial the emergency number 999, the UK's emergency service number, then abruptly hang up before speaking to anyone, your phone's battery will mysteriously begin to charge itself, even if it's dead. At first, it sounds harmless, maybe even a little absurd, but for those desperate in their time of need, stuck in the middle of nowhere with no power, no signal, and no hope, the temptation is irresistible. They say the process doesn't just work, it works too well. Phones that were drained to nothing spring to life with a terrifying energy, buzzing with life as if some dark force is feeding it from beyond. But the myth is more sinister than it seems. What happens when you dial that number waiting for the unknown to respond, and something answers? Who or what is really charging your phone in the dead of night? The legend warns, be careful what you call, for some connections are more than just a lifeline. They're a doorway to something